Before the video begins, prayers out to KamenRider Sword's actor and Kajuki Yellow's actor, both have tested positive for COVID. Prayers out to them, and hopefully they get better. Okay, now, this is same video but a bit different. It was originally uploaded on Thursday, but due to editing reasons, I decided to take it down and redo it differently. And so, hello and welcome to KamenRider Blackman, and today we will be reviewing Dobutsu Sentai Zyuohger. Now, with that said, we are going to be doing things in a good, bad, and third option type of review, where we go over things that I thought was good, go over things I thought was bad, and some things that for third option this time are, well, in the middle. But stuff that's in the middle are things I either have no opinion on or didn't really affect me as much in the show. So let's give a few examples by starting off with the middle. Alright, aside from Genius and Bungre, let's talk about the other villains in this show. The Azald, Naria, and Q-Bar. Azald's probably my least favorite because he was just the generic, brute, right-hand general. Naria was just a stereotypical female protagonist, or, well, stereotypical protagonist that just serves to make the monsters grow. Q-Bar, on the other hand, was the most compelling because of his betrayal to Genius later on. And now, before I go on with Q-Bar, let's talk about Azald and compare both of their stories. Now, with Azald's revelation of being an ancient monster that fought the first Zyuohger ever, Zyuo Whale, so many years ago, that wouldn't be so bad if it hadn't came so late in the game, to the point that the show is almost over. And it wouldn't be so bad if it hadn't came so late. Q-Bar's, on the other hand, with the realization, or at least the reveal that Genius destroyed his home planet and Q-Bar wants revenge, that was done well because they let it linger for so long. And when it happened, it's not that you saw it coming, it's that you don't know why, but you knew something was coming for that character. And when his plan straight up blew up in his face, it broke him, and I liked that, which further supports why I like Genius as a character, but I'll get to him later. And so, yeah, Q-Bar was, well, by comparison, the most interesting out of those three. And so, let's talk about some other characters as well. Now, the other protagonists, they start off good and interesting, but they stay the same later on. So let's start off with Sella. She was the most homesick out of the four of them, but they never do anything about it until the last episode when both worlds collide. But till then, she doesn't get much. She's the most considerate, but not a lot is done with her at all. Like, she gets her focused episodes, but not a lot. And so, next, Tusk. He is unfortunately just there. He's the smart one, and he's just, well, there. It's like, he does act the most close to Misao, but that's about it with him. With him alone, personally, they really don't do a lot. And what's sad too is that we do learn a little bit about who they have for parents or family. With Yamato, it's his mom, his dad, and his uncle. Leo has some younger siblings. With Sella, it's her family. Amu is her mom. We don't really get anything about Misao, but with Tusk, we just see his dad in flashbacks, and that's about it. Speaking of which, our Sixth Ranger, Misao, he's very hard to depict because he's just so in the middle. He's not the best, but he's not the worst. And compared to Real Soul Gold, I still take Misao over him because Misao's not a moron. He has his depression. He does feel guilty about, well, starting off evil. But when he stops being evil and he needs to get over himself is where he slowly tries to be better. The moments where he sort of is in a crouching down sad, it got old really quickly and pretty annoying. But why I consider Misao in the middle is that he ultimately means well and he's totally harmless. But I will say this though, his start as the World was good. It's been a long time since we honestly had an evil Sixth Ranger, period, that eventually turns good. Because his story is just like others, but with more layers to it. Because he's also the first evil Sixth Ranger who wasn't naturally evil. He was actually turned evil. But next, let's talk about, at least, we're going to talk about the mechs early, but the least hated one, spoiler alert. It's the final mech, Wild Tosai Dodeka King. It's not awful, well, at least the top part is. The legs, however, are silly, to say the least. But I do like the finisher, though, with a bunch of Zyuohger cubes running straight towards the monster and counting up to 100. That was pretty cool. But the combination itself is not the worst compared to a lot of other things in this show. But it's pretty mild. And so, speaking of which of the mechs, moving on to the bad. The mechs in this show in general. The aesthetic design looks horrible. My least favorite one is the lion because it looks the most Minecraft. It just opens up and it has that square Minecraft head. And when it becomes the legs, it's more confusing because the lion has to close up, turn around, make the legs that way, and then when the whole Megazord's set, how the heck is that cube supposed to break apart to actually make the legs and feet? According to how it's done, there's no way it actually can or even could, which is why there were two toys of the main mech. One with the legs together, the other with the legs separated. So, next, let's just not talk about Zyuohger King. Let's just talk about the mechs as a whole in this show. Except for one, but I'll get to that later. Zyuohger King is not the best looking, period. Matter of fact, I'm not a big fan of any of these combinations. Dodekaio is the worst one, and I'm dead serious. It looks like a combination between Betamax from Big Hero 6 and a scuba diver. And it's all the aesthetic. Even the head is just so horrid. It's like when Cube Whale as a mech alone, it looks good. But when it becomes a Megazord, it's honestly the worst one in the show. And I originally thought that the first one in the show would be Wild Tosai King. Because the platform feet are cubes, but no, it's this big red thing instead. Speaking of which, for another thing in the bad, but this is just particularly my least favorite character, and that's Leo. He's my least favorite because he is an idiot. He's just a Neanderthal. He's also kind of sexist and is totally oblivious to it. And that sexism just makes them look even more bad, in my opinion. Like, Sella has a bit of a beef with him because he goes light on her when it's the fighting because she's a girl. And one time when Naria was tied up, he let her go because, well, she was a girl. And I just look at him like, you're an idiot. Pretty much. And so, for another thing in the bad, there are storylines in this show that just come way too late, in my opinion. And said storylines being Azald's origin, with him being an ancient monster that was sealed a long time ago. Now, I'm going to compare Azald to a villain from Kamen Rider Super 1, because I've actually watched that show a little while ago. It's like, Azald he's that villain who has an interesting backstory, but the only difference there is that Azald's origin and backstory comes, while it was lightly foreshadowed, it comes in episode 45, and then he's killed the next episode. The villain that I'm talking about from Super 1, he's been part of the show from episode 1. Then, when his backstory and origin was revealed, and there could be some change, he dies in that episode alone. So, there's nothing really for me to gravitate towards, because it's just too late now. Like, but for Azald's case, the show is literally almost over. And after we beat him, there are 2 villains left, so we're going to wrap up the show and beat them. Also, Yamato's relationship with his dad, it's just, that also comes a little too late. We learn about his mom before we learn about him, and once again, it comes when the show is almost over. But along with other stuff that the show was working on around that time, they could have at least fit that in somewhere, I guess. Like right after they talked about his mom. But yeah. Last thing that's part of the bad with storylines that come too late. The reveal that Genius is a mask of Mebas. That I feel would have been nice if it was a bit more foreshadowed. But it comes literally in the last episode. But there's just one thing that makes it not flat out horrible, in my opinion. To which we'll talk about once we get to Genius, as we go on to finally the good with Zyuohger. Starting off with the suits. The suits I don't think are so bad. I like the helmets. They're my favorite part. It's just the animal designs on them that are real. The animal designs on the helmet are really focused on, to the point where you see exposed silver spots by the mouth area. It makes sense there. But the suits with the animals huge on the chest, I don't mind that because it takes up the whole chest. So that I don't mind. Not to mention, the suits also have a power-up form with it, which they get immediately in episode 1. The form where they say, Yasekai Ho, and they all get their own type of power-up. With Lion and Tiger, they get claws. With Shark, she gets a shark fin. With Elephant, he gets elephant feet. And Eagle just gets the wings. I think they were pretty useful and not so bad. That part alone did serve a role, since this show is, well, animal themed, and everyone gets something unique to them. Not like Gao Ranger, where they all get claws, but not all the animals that each ranger is based off of technically has claws. So next, we could talk about Zyuohger and Zyuohwhale. They both look good. Zyuohger is pretty interesting because of its bulky figure, and Zyuohwhale just looks hot damn awesome. Like, the whale design facing sideways, going down to the cloak area, that looks nice. And the best part about Zyuohger, the best part, in my opinion, is that Zyuohger's helmet flips up and it reveals the face of the gorilla. And he can do it going backwards too. He can also just morph into either one, no matter what, and just do that whenever. And while Zyuohwhale can't do that with that helmet's design, and it just can't do it overall, still works pretty well. And so next, my favorite suit, Zyuoh the World. This suit is awesome. It's considered a Black Ranger, and it balances together 3 colors: black, silver, and I want to say gold or amber. Not to mention, it has 2 other forms too to coordinate with each different animal. Like, and it has what Zyuohger / Eagle has, where the mouth of the helmet just flips open and it reveals to be another animal form. With Zyuoh the World, it does that so with the wolf and the crocodile. And in my personal opinion, I like the crocodile helmet. It just looks good, furthering the point that it's either gold or amber. Not to mention, with both forms as well, he gets a unique ability. Like with the wolf form, he gets super speed, and the crocodile, super strength. Not to mention, he also gets a power-up form as well, when he says, Yasei Daikaiho, and he gets the rhino on the shoulder pads, and let's see here, wolf claws, as well as a crocodile tail. And hot damn, dude's the shit. And so next, oh crap, the last suit at least we have to talk on here is Zyuoh Bird suit. It's just an orange recolor of Zyuoh Eagle. It's fine. And now, let's talk about the best mech in this show. And you're going to be surprised by this, hopefully. Tosai Zyuoh. Let's talk about the 3 mechs first that make it, and then we'll get on to the combination. And I mean it. Zyuoh the World has the best mechs in this show, in my opinion. My favorite one being the Rhino Truck, and my second favorite being the Crocodile. And I think it's because they all start off evil, so they have this dark, interior and presence to them. And now for Tosai Zyuoh, this is the best combination in that show. I love the colors all together: black, gold, silver, and amber. And I love its finisher. I love how it's threatening at first. I just really like this combination. And so, what else is in the good? Let's talk about the story progression. For as much filler that there is in this show, for as much filler as there is, at least manages to be story progression. Like, because even in some filler episodes, there's foreshadowing, which I think helps. And it also helps the fact that when I was taking notes for this show, I got up to 21 pages. Not a lot happens. A lot happens in this show than you think on rewatch. And so next, now we're talking about characters. Yamato. Yamato is the best. I think because he's a zoologist, it further makes him the best because of how much he cares about animals and people and how far he'll actually go for the right reason when it's trying to save Misao from being evil. Or heck, he literally wanted when they introduced wild Zuo King, Yamato was willing to face the Death Galleons on his own while the rest go home. Not to mention, years after his show is even over, in the Super Sentai Battle Special, he still wrecks shit. And you're remembered how much he's awesome and why you like him so much. And not to mention, he's so nice and considerate, too. He's a great Red Ranger. So next, let's talk about the extra ranger of the show, Bado, aka Kaiksa. No, I'm kidding. I mean Zyuohger. He is at the forefront for the tone of this show, which is racism. And because he has witnessed and seen actual racism, and all he does is run away from it until he learns from Yamato that there's no getting away from racism. You just have to accept that it's there and know that there's better than racism. You can move on and be better from it and see better from everything else that's not... The world's not black or white, it's gray. And so Bado... I think that's what Bado showed to me, which is why I personally like him. And now, the Gokaiger team-up. That team-up was amazing, not just as a team-up, but it also gives further lore for the show about the history of Zooland and introducing Zuo Whale, and just... It works so... It even gives the reason as to why Bungre came to Earth, and further expands on it after the special. Not only did Captain Marvelous and the Gokaigers come back to give a good time, but they further made this part of the show much better. And we get an update in Ranger Keys too, from Go Busters to Ninja, as well as their ending theme get updated, going up to Zyuohger now. That team-up special was fun. It was fun. Where I personally stopped watching the episode was when they left Navi behind, because cringy. Speaking of which, moving on now to the villains that are in the good. Bungre. Bungre was great. His rivalry with Yamato, one of the best aspects of the show. Dude did not give a shit. And I don't know if anyone else paid attention to this too, but dude also had a body count. Like, on any random episode, you see it's him and a bunch of people on the ground, and your first thought is, did he kill these people? I mean it when I say it. Dude had a body count. And also, oh yeah, almost forgot, the most messed up moment ever. Dude can read your memories, bring back and manifest that memory to life. He primarily uses it for monsters. And the episode after he's introduced, he brings Yamato's mom back to life because she died. So he took Yamato's memory of his mom and manifested into her as an actual person. Yamato spends half of the day with his mom, and he kills her right in front of him. And I just looked at him, and I just said, "You're a sick bastard." Because, like what I said, the dude didn't give a fuck. And he was just... His design looked great too, but the dude didn't give a fuck. And his whole reason for coming to Earth was to hunt and kill Cube Whale. Kind of curious as to how far ahead he would get doing that, because Cube Whale is a Zord, and it could grow on its own. So I think it would kind of put up a bit of a fight. Moving on, next, Genius. You know, before now, I thought Genius was just the villain who sat on his ass and watched stuff happen until the end. On rewatch, I realized Genius was a good villain. He was intuitive, cunning. He knew how to damage people psychologically and still get his way. Not to mention, he's always one step ahead. Because here are the small victories Genius has had. He created the world, which he got inspiration from when Zyuohger transformed into Zyuohgorilla. And from Dodekaio's first fight, he got a memory device to gather information from their first battle, and he uses it on himself to get the power of the earth to gain a new form. Like, Genius is always one step ahead. And to further prove that point, when Q-Bar's plan of trying to take him down failed, Genius won psychologically. Q-Bar was broken and going insane, only thinking about survival. And so Genius just sat there and watched him go insane because he won. Q-Bar was going to die one way or another, and so he already lost mentally. And I think with the reveal of Genius being a mass of Mebas, by the way, are the minions of the show, they're alright. And the thing is, Genius hates that about himself so much that he would want no one to know about his secret, and he would kill anyone and had with Naria so that no one would know his secret. Top with everything, Genius is just sadistic. He's so sadistic, and everything around him and everything having to do with him further shows it. Killing people just for a game, from seeing Q-Bar's just mental breakdown and seeing his desperation. It's just, everything with him is just so twisted, and I like that. It was pretty silent, and he didn't really show any other emotion till the very end, but it was still good. And yeah, that could be like the one flaw, that it gets introduced so late. That's in the show now, but it was still good. And now, let's talk about the motive of the villains. The fact that they treated this all as a game, I liked that. Like, because they set this up to have rules, both don't just go at a time, they take turns, and the whole point of the game was just to amuse him. It wasn't just to kill people for the sake of killing people, it was straight up to amuse the big boss. That's dark. Now, another thing I want to touch on in the good is the racism tone in this show. I personally, this is what I got from it. The racism tone in this show was real, and it shows how much Zooland is actually a reflection of society, of what happened. It's like, example being when Bado befriended a human, and long story short, that human died by accident. That was covered up. That was something so real world that is, because it actually is real world. Stuff like that does happen. And the racism tone in this show, it doesn't just show racism. It gives us something to explore and to grow from, to make its characters with those flaws better. And now, the last thing to talk about in the good is the ending. The final episode, or at least the final scene of the episode, where both worlds fuse together and now Zoomen and humans are living together. This is going to be a surprise. I quite like the finale. Here's why. Or at least I quite like that. Because it shows... Because it's something... It made me feel good on the inside. Seeing two races just come together. Because it made me feel happy on the inside to see these two races come together. To grow together, make history together. It's just the whole point of this show was a man meets these four people from a different world and they make a beautiful friendship and they wanted to spread that everywhere, like seeing two races get along. There's no prejudice, no racism. Everyone's just happy and kind to each other. It kind of makes me tear up on the inside. And while it does seem naive and crazy as all hell, it by the way, sets Zyuohger up in its own separate universe, but the whole point of that finale was to make something positive. And that's something that in real life we're all striving for. Everyone of different race and color trying to get along, to make something positive. That being, well, the world and that shouldn't be too hard to ask. And it's not like they got there. It's a slow progression. They're working on it still. And that's at least what I got out of it. Okay, now, 2 more questions, and that should at least wrap up the video. How do I think Zyuohger did as an anniversary season? As an anniversary season, it definitely did not do a lot. It just had the Gokaiger special and a few internet specials, and that was about it. And so for an anniversary season, you would hardly even notice if it was one or not. But do I feel that the show was Red-centric? Yes and no, because Yamato was the most developed from start to finish. He got the power-ups. He even got a final form that he faced Genius in in the final battle. But it's just, was it all that Red-centric? I don't know. Here's the thing. With me, I kind of look at Zyuohger as I look at Shinkenger. It was a Red-focused show, but the other characters still shined and were memorable. And you can even say that there were some episodes where they were the focus. And that's how I feel and say about Zyuohger, for the most part at least. And so, with that said, that's about it really. That has been my review of Dobutsu Sentai Zyuohger. Now, next time, we will be looking at KamenRider W for W month, and as well as celebrating my 2-year anniversary in September. I'm not too sure if there will be a lull in videos in August, but we'll see when we get there. With that said, thank you guys for watching. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, share this video, and tell your friends about KamenRider Blackman. And I will see you guys next time.